whole goal of Let's Get Real is to give you guys support, to have a conversation between two dudes that is not maybe the normal conversation you might hear on the bone. And today, it's blessings and gratitude.
Yeah.
Talk about this all day.
You know I could.
I know you could. This comes up for me a lot. I wish I could snap my fingers and every time, like even in this moment, because gratitude. One thing about gratitude that I'll talk about is it keeps you present.
Yes.
Like fear can't live in gratitude, worry can't live in gratitude, and one of the things that when you say, okay, well, I am grateful for blank, is it keeps you in the present moment. But the point I was making earlier is the difference between when you go, oh, I am grateful for this moment, and it hits.
Yeah.
Like it effing hits. Versus, I'm grateful for this moment.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hit. But like in this moment right now, 12:24, Saturday, this is my favorite 2 hours a week.
I know.
Between noon and 2 on Saturday. And it's like, man, I'm like, I get to do this right now. Like I get to be present in this moment because it's really, really awesome. And I'm really, really grateful. Oh, and I love you.
Mm-hmm. I love you too, man. Thank you.
So, but it transformed itself for me when I was in Oaxaca because it was just like it wasn't hitting, even though it should have, even though I knew for all intents and purposes it should have. But then I framed it as it is truly a blessing in my life that I got to be in that moment and that I get to go there regularly and I have friends there and these wonderful people in my life who do not speak a lick of English. And I'm literally feverishly on Google Translate going, oh my God, I don't know what she just said, but here we go. Negotiating with the person who I have a house with. And he's like, da, 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 da. I'm like, I don't know, but I'll come back to you.
And now you owe him $100,000.
And he's like, oh man, you're an abogado, which is lawyer, I think. Or maybe it's food. I don't know. But it's so much fun. It's like it's a blessing in life that I get to do that. So part of what we want to talk about today is even if you need support, maybe what you need is a reframe around blessings and gratitude. 1-800-771-1025. You also know that I'm a big believer in synchronicities and signs.
Yes, sir.
I do think that God and the universe are trying to tell us something, and the language they speak is coincidences, synchronicities, and signs.
Yes, sir.
You know I'm a big, and I know you are too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having this like internal dialogue about blessings. And it was like the next day. I'm going to sidebar the conversation here, but I think it's worth saying because I also think it kind of builds to the foundation of what this radio show is all about. It's football season, and I'm stoked, okay? I am absolutely stoked. I am a huge. I know everybody around here is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. And look, I've lived in this area for 20 years, so through osmosis, I'm a Bucs fan. But since I was an 8-year-old little boy, I was a New York Jets fan. So I'm a New York Jets fan. I'm doomed to a life of misery, okay? But I like football, and I like listening to football podcasts. I'm not a watch football for 12 hours every Sunday kind of guy. I'll watch every single Jets game there is. But I like throughout the week, I'll listen to my football podcast. So I'm walking around in Oaxaca, and I'm listening to a football podcast, and again, you know, I'm macheting.
Mm-hmm.
So
as you do.
So my podcast runs out, and I can't go back and like listen. So it automatically goes to a new podcast, and it's listening, and it plays a podcast of a show that I really like. It's the Athletics football show. Their host is really, really good as a radio person. He's actually really, really good at hosting, but my hands are full. So I can't like fast forward. So I guess I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm listening to this podcast. It was an interview with the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. Okay. I don't really care about the Rams. I don't. I'm not like, I'm a football fan, but I don't care what they're doing in LA. I just, whatever. It is what it is. Hands are full, machete, snakes. Can't get to my phone. So I start listening to this podcast, and again, man, it's like the universe is trying to tell me something. The head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, his name is Sean McVay.
Sounds good.
Let's go with that because I know you're such a football fan.
Sean is a great guy.
He's a great guy. So this is a football podcast, okay? And I want to lay this foundation here. It's a football podcast. I allow myself just sort of brain noise to listen to X's and O's and that sort of thing, okay? He is talking with the host of, or the coach of a football team. And his first question is, for the last decade or for the last few years, you've had the experience of coaching arguably one of the best football players in football, a gentleman by the name of Aaron Donald. And again, X's and O's. He's like, so tell me, you got to coach arguably one of the best football players of all time, Aaron Donald. Tell me, what was that experience like? Now, that question could have been answered a million different ways. Oh, he was a great defensive guard. He was this, blah, 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 blah. The head coach of the Los Angeles Rams' answer to that question was, it was a blessing.
Yeah. He knew.
Literally answered this. And I'm just like, God was like,
boom.
Boom. Your hands are full with snakes and machetes, so you can't fast forward through this podcast. So you are going to hear this thing that I put in queue for you. And it was Sean McVay saying, coaching Aaron Donald was a blessing in my life. And I'm like, thank you, universe. Like, it kept coming to me around, hey, man, you can have gratitude in the moment. That's a good thing. But if it doesn't hit, that's okay. You're a human being. That happens from time to time. But this thing we call life is a blessing. And I'll dive a little bit more into that. But isn't that kind of crazy?
I love those synchronicities so much. I love those synchronicities so much, especially when you notice them, like they really stand out and you're just kind of left sitting there going, I know coincidences are real, but I also believe in a higher power. So it's got to be one of those. And I don't know which side of the fence I'm on right now, but I'm just going to enjoy this moment and just let it happen. And those moments, like when you're thinking about blessings and then you hear the word blessings on some random podcast, I would say that's part of the spice of life that a lot of people go years without ever really seeing.
Yeah, I heard this not too long ago that and I think it was Jimmy Dore on Joe Rogan said that synchronicities are how God speaks to us.
Yeah, I believe that.
And I agree with that. And I like that. And I also like the whole, like, hey, I'm just going to ask the universe, like, show me a sign. And it shows you a sign. But the fact, like, it would have been one thing had the podcast queued to, I don't know, something.
Anything. Yeah.
But it was like, it was my favorite, like, not because I listen to a lot of New York Jets content, but this was my favorite, like, football show. And as I said, the mind noise sometimes is, they'll be talking about, some thing that I don't fully understand because I love football, but it's like, again, it's background noise. It's like when my daughter watches Friends, she just has Friends on in the background. I'll throw on a football podcast on the background. But the fact that, like, the head coach of a football team, one of 32 football teams, answers his very first question around a blessing to coach this player. And then the funny thing is that the conversation evolved not into, tell us about the season this year. The conversation evolved into being a dad.
Yeah. The two-parter in your face.
I know.
Two-parter in your face.
I know. And it was just like, I don't know. I 1-800-771-1025 if you want to join in on this conversation, or support is what you need. This is Let's Get Real. It's a conversation. Two guys today talking about blessings. But like when I won't forget exactly where I was when he said it was a blessing to coach Aaron Donald. All the imagery is exactly what it is, but I was standing kind of on a very steep hill, and I stopped. Like, it literally, to say it stopped me in my tracks is accurate. I stopped, one, to catch my balance because it's a little dangerous.
Is that high altitude?
Right. But two, I was like, did he just say blessing? And it was so like, thank you, universe, for this sign of like, hey, I'm trying to tell you something. It's okay if you're not feeling gratitude. It's okay if that doesn't hit. You are a human being. You do have bills to pay, and you have life, and you have worry, and you have fear, and all those things come up. And it's okay that those things come up. But don't lose sight of the fact that this experience, the entirety of the experience, whether it be the entirety of the experience of going in Mexico, whether it be the entirety of this experience of doing a really cool show and your inner child's happy for 2 hours every Saturday, that you get to do this thing. It's like, no, never lose sight of the entirety of the experience, that it is truly a blessing that we get to live this life. And yeah, you know what? Stuff gets hard sometimes.
Yeah,
it does. And I'm like thinking of somebody listening right now to the bone going, what in the hell is this? I'm having a tough time. Yeah, I get that. And tough times are part of it all. But in the entirety of it, it's a blessing.
Yeah, it really is. Especially, like I said, when you start to see the synchronicities and whatever you want to call it, the signs, omens, it gets a lot more fun. This past Thursday, I was telling you a little bit yesterday or today, but this past Thursday, I was. It's the first time in a long time I had like legitimate anxiety and fear and worry for more than a couple of days, and it all came to a head on Thursday. And I was just like, man, I got to get my life together. I need more money. I'm still living with a roommate. This is not how I saw my life going when I was younger, where I'd be at 37. And I was just, I was just in it, not feeling great about myself. And out of nowhere, this song popped into my head. And the song is Hippie Sabotage, Turtle in the Waves. And I haven't listened to this song in months. It was one of my favorite songs for a while, and it just popped into my head. And lo and behold, it was like one of the next songs that came up on my shuffle. And the song's just all about surrendering to the universe and just understanding that, everything is ebbs and flows. But like you said, the main crux of it was all we have to do is just exist, and that's it. All this other stuff is stress that we put on ourselves to exist in this society that we were born into. And it was that feeling of just like a warm blanket wrapped around me, and all of the fear and anxiety that I had just slipped away. And I know that didn't come from me, that, because I hadn't thought about that song. There's no reason for me to think about that song. And that was, in my opinion, that was the universe being like, I got you, bud. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay.
Yes.
That's a blessing.
It truly is. 1-800-771-1025 is our phone number if you want to join in on the conversation, or if you just want to listen, that's cool too. The show is called Let's Get Real. The thing that you just said, and I think you captured it well, in the feeling of a warm blanket. Because one thing that you and I have stepped forward into our own space on this show and said we are okay just being two dudes talking about our feelings.
Even if they make us sound crazy.
It's cool, man. We're just talking about our feelings. And just so you know, I listen to football podcasts, so it's all cool. You can have both. But it is, man. I think that actually that resonates with me on on how I would describe when gratitude really hits. It's warm.
Yeah, and it's that feeling of warmth and gratitude is the first time in my life, not this recent time, but the first time I ever felt that was the first time in my life I understood and fully accepted that I am not alone, even as much as I can feel alone, as much as I may not have anyone around me, parents, family, friends. But that feeling I'll never forget, and every time I feel it, that's my reminder of I'm not alone. I'm part of something much bigger, and that is something that no one can take away from me, and it is, and it will always be, and that brings me a lot of peace, especially in really hard times.
Amen to that, dude. Amen to that. And look, I think having that reminder, be it a warm feeling around gratitude that you're not alone, like whatever it takes. You know what I mean? Like, let it be gratitude, be grateful for those moments. And honestly, and that's where it's like it gets a little bit paper thin when you're like, oh, just be grateful. I get that it's hard.
Yeah.
And it gets hard. And look, it's going to be hard tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's going to be hard in a week. And when it's hard, you can rejoice knowing that you are alive as a human being. And it's worth that.